What's up, y'all? So in today's YouTube video, we will be discussing how to use our basic bodice block and turn it into a corset. I'm going to go ahead and leave down in the comments a list of measurements that you will need, as well as some formulas that you can use to be successful. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything's kind of not clicking right, make sure that you leave some comments down below, and I will be sure to address your comments and concerns as needed. And yeah, let's just hop right on into the video. All right. Okay, so starting off, we are going to draw our shoulder line. So this line is however long you want your corset or bodice to stop at. I opted for mine to stop at the upper hip. So you'll see me marking the points such as shoulder to bust, shoulder to underbust, shoulder to waist, and then shoulder to my upper hips. But I did have to go down from my ruler after marking my shoulder to bust, underbust, etc. points, and go down a little bit further because my ruler wasn't long enough in order to get to the upper hip. So this is what I'm doing here. As you can see, I'm going down a few more inches, and I am going to mark where my upper hip stops. Now after that, I know it's a little bit harder to see, but here at the top, this is going to be your shoulder line. So your shoulder measurement divided by 2 is what this measurement at the top will be. So I am going to go ahead and draw a straight line for that divided by 2 measurement, and at the same time I'm going to mark my neck hole using the normal 3 inches across and 3 inches down on the shoulder line, as you can see me marking here. Now, once I have my shoulder line marked, I am going to go down an inch from that shoulder line just to give my shoulder that natural slope. And then from the neck point down to the shoulder line, I'm going to draw a straight line. So this line should be angled. And then after that, I am going to take my curved ruler and I am going to perform the curve that is needed for the neck hole here. So I wanted to put this in real time just so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing, just so we didn't miss anything. So here I am going ahead and I'm marking my underbust, bust, waist, and hip points. So of course this is my entire bust measurement divided by 4, underbust divided by 4, etc. So I'm going across horizontally and I am marking and labeling each line. So here you can see I just completed my bust and now I'm doing my underbust point. This is going to be my waist. And again, these are your full circumference of this measurement divided by 4. And I'll have this down in the bio as well. So at the bottom here, this is my upper hip. And just to let you guys know ahead, for my waist measurement, that I did subtract 2 from the entire measurement just because I am making a corset and I want the waist to have, you know, just like a more snatched look. So I took 2 inches from the entire circumference of the waist measurement and I divided that by 4. Okay. So now I'm going back up to the shoulder line and we're going to do my armhole depth. So I'm starting at the top of this line, but I'm adding an inch, of course, because the inch is where the slope actually starts. So I'm adding an inch to my armhole depth. And if you don't want to measure your armhole depth, there is a formula for that as well that I will include in the bio. And then once I do my armhole depth, I am going across here and I am marking my chest line. For the horizontal line for your chest line, it is going to be the exact same measurement as your bust line. So once I do that, I'm going to mark the halfway point of my armhole, and I am going to go in 0.5 from that armhole point, and from here, this is how I am going to form my curve. So as you can see, I'm kind of playing around here to form my curve for this armhole. And it's not perfect, but for this particular pattern, I'm not using the armhole, but it is optional to keep this part up here if you want to add a yoke to your corset, meaning that you want some chest covered up with the yoke. So if you want like the sleeves. So I'm just curving that line there, and then I'm going to go back to the bust line, and I'm going to use my bust to bust point here divided by 2 in order to get this measurement. So I'm going to do the bust to bust point throughout each of these horizontal lines. So I'm doing this on the bust, the underbust, the waist, and the hip. This is just to get like your center chest, so you know exactly where you want that seam to run. Now from here, I'm going 0.5 over on the waistline from that bust point line, that bust to bust point. I'm only doing 0.5 because I do have a smaller bust, but if you have a larger bust, you can do a bigger measurement. And then I am just connecting those 2 points to the bust to bust point that I did on the hip line, because we're going to go ahead and make that a dart, and that's going to get cut out later, as well as I'm bringing that all the way up to my bust point. Again, if you have a bigger bust, it's important that you do a bigger measurement on your waistline than what I did. So once I have that measurement, I'm going to take the measurement from the bust to the underbust. I believe mine was 2.5, and I am going to go around in a circle around that entire bust line just to get the full bust point. You can also do this with just, regular measuring tape. But this is just so I am aware exactly where I need my lines to go when I am forming my cup for my corset. So again, we want to go around the entire bust area here. So once you finish going around this entire bust point, it should form a clear circle that you can see with those dots that you formed, as you can see here. So what I'm doing now is just I am taking that measurement all the way through the entire bust to bust point, and I'm marking the top of that circle. This is what I will be using as my placement to stop for the cups of the corset. So now I am just taking my curve. I went in 0.5 from that shoulder line, and now I'm just taking my curved ruler and I'm forming the side of that cup. As well as here from the top, I'm doing the same thing with the darts that I did at the bottom. I'm just using the same measurement from the underbust, and I'm bringing it up to this chest line. I am forming a dart here. I'm opening it up here. So I went on ahead and formed that bust point. After I went on ahead and I formed that dart, I'm going to go ahead and create my line for the top point of my cup here. So I'm using this curve in order to create the line, but I wanted my cup to have still like a straighter line and not be too curved for this particular design. But of course you can give yourself an even bigger curve or more of a sweetheart neckline. It just all depends on preference here now when forming the shape of the cup. For this side, I'm making sure I go outside of that circle I formed about 0.5 inch, and I am just hand drafting the cup for the side here. But you want to make sure you go out that circle because on the side of our boob, we do have a little bit more, just room there. I'm going back in and I'm fixing this curve here. I did see that I didn't go outside of the dotted line, so I went back in and I fixed this. And don't feel bad if you have to go back in and make changes. That's the beauty of pattern making. This is your time to go back in, make changes, make adjustments as needed. And this is just me marking out that previous line so I don't get mistaken. So I'm just putting slashes through that line. Now I'm going ahead and I'm forming a line in the center of this bust, just so I can have a top part of the cup as well as two parts at the bottom. And now you'll see me label these just so I don't get them confused when I cut them out. Now here I am going back in and I'm taking the measurements from the darts and I'm adding them back to the end of each of these horizontal lines. So you want to make sure that you do that to add back that extra space that you took out with the shaping of those darts. So I'm going back in and I'm adding those back in. So once I have done that, I am just going to go ahead and connect each of these lines to form the outside of my corset. And then you will also curve these lines in the same way that we curve the shoulder and everything of that sort. But I didn't do it in this video. But you want to make sure you put curves because you don't want these lines to be just fully straight. So go back in and curve those lines. But here I'm showing you guys how I connected the cup to the outside line here right under that armhole depth. And I'm also telling you guys that I went on ahead and I took that waist measurement down by 2 and I went in and I connected these lines. Now when you cut these lines out, make sure that you add seam allowance around this entire pattern. And you really want to make sure that you're doing this because if not, your garment will not fit correctly. So make sure you're adding seam allowance and make sure you do a mock-up first, okay? Make sure you do a mock-up first so that you can go back and make adjustments. So I really hope this helps. Let me know if you guys have any comments or questions down below. All right, bye.